trolling Senator Elizabeth Warren as a snake, and in post after post, labeling Mayor Pete Buttigieg a rat. Two victims of this tell CNN they were so afraid of the online attacks they faced, they don't even want us to describe the circumstances for fear it would start up again. They both just questioned the politics of Bernie Sanders in a public setting, and their personal lives were exposed and attacked.
Well, just what Nick said, I think that's right. I mean, there is no Democratic establishment anymore. There's not even a Democratic Party anymore. The Democratic Party is a meaningless notion that the party, like the Republican Party, has been hollowed out and privatized to a large extent. There are Democratic elites, and so when we're talking about the Democratic establishment, we're really talking about a number of, a bunch of people that Nick also knows well, which really means Democratic donors.
This is the most important election in the history of our country.
This election is the most important in the modern history of this country.
The election in 2020, without hyperbole, is going to be the most important election this country has undergone in over 100 years. Not a joke.
This November's elections are more important than any I can remember in my lifetime, and that includes when I was on the ballot.
There are just 8 days left in what is the most important election of our lifetime.
Where did you guys come to a conclusion about why Clinton had such a hard time just owning that she did something wrong with the email server?
You know, I know that Russia and other forces would love us to have a debate. This is exactly what they want. They want us to have a debate about the internal structure of Hillary's campaign, what's true, what's not true. And I'm just not going to play that. I'm sorry.
We came, we saw, we died.
I was the CIA director. We lied, we cheated, we stole. It's like we had entire training courses. It reminds you of the glory of the American experiment.
You know, people have said, if you look at, for example, the heat that ended up around the bend the knee of Colin Kaepernick. Mm-hmm. Many smart people have said it actually was not a thing. The Russian bots started taking out. Really? Yes.
But I saw my mom. My mom is the strongest woman I know.
She should
be running. This is not about.
If you're like me, one of the millions suffering from pain caused by migraine, Nurtec ODT may help. It's the only medication that can treat a migraine when it strikes and prevent migraine attacks.
Trump and the Republicans lose on Tuesday, and if they lose badly, it's not going to be because of the left, whatever that means. It's not because of the 50 Antifa black mask guys who roam around the United States breaking windows and committing mayhem, most of whom are probably paid police informers. Most of whom are probably paid police informers.
Rudy Giuliani, there's only three things he mentioned in a sentence, a noun and a verb and 9/11. I mean...
I'm going to try to get through this. Thank you for what you did 3 years ago today.
And I went to Wall Street in December of 2007, before the big crash that we had, and I basically said, cut it out.
And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. If we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden.
This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever.
He is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country.
I can't do it.
We'll do it live.
Okay. No.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. And thing sucks.
In 5, 4, 3.
Citizens of the internet, where do I begin? Where do I begin? Well, here's where I begin. Last week, I went out on a limb and I made the claim that Trump would not attack Iran, and I was wrong. Boy, was I wrong. And the reason that I thought that Trump would not attack Iran is because of the economic kind of backlash it would cause, as we're going to get into in a few minutes. I just didn't think it would be a smart move, but smart moves aren't what the Trump administration makes. And I will say this. I noticed I have a couple of conspiracy theories, and one of these is a joke, obviously. But the first is this. Here, let me just share the tweet with you, because I don't think this tweet, it is a treat, by the way. I don't think this treat got the love that it deserved, this tweet. So I said, I'd like to thank Donald Trump for greatly reducing the amount of American military bases in the Middle East. Interesting method, but the results are what really matters. Thank you, real Donald Trump. And in case you don't know what I'm talking about here is a video of huge explosions occurring at the U.S. base in Erbil, Iraq. Go ahead and mute that. So if you've been paying attention, and I think that X right now, despite a lot of its flaws, is one of the better places to get updates on this. And there's a lot of misinformation floating around. There's a lot of stupid stuff. But overall, I feel like you get the most accurate kind of minute-to-minute updates. So the first theory I had behind Trump allowing Israel to start a war with Iran was that this is his like 4D chess move of getting American military bases out of the Middle East, getting Iran to blow them up. Now, obviously, I'm being a little bit of a coy goyim with you there, but coy goy, just call me the coy goy. However, as I've said before, I feel like to change anything, you have to use very creative methodology, and it's definitely possible given all the shit we've seen in the last crazy, 10 years of just this weird, it just feels like a fever dream. It's crazy. I was just thinking the other day that 2016 was 10 years ago. It's mind-blowing when you really think about it, how fast the last 10 years have kind of flown by. So back to the Iran war. I obviously don't really believe that Trump started the war to get American military bases out of the Middle East, but there's a lot of blowback already kind of occurring here. And I think that the more that I'm kind of watching this unfold, they convinced him that it was going to be another Maduro thing where they could go in, take out the top brass or the leaders like Khamenei, who they did kill, and then do a victory lap on Barry Weiss's channel, whose new logo just dropped today. They could go do a victory lap on CBS News. Clever, isn't it? And everything would be kosher. They plug in, what's this guy's name? Reza Pahlavi, who is the kind of Maria Corina Machado / Juan Guaido of Iran, the guy that thinks he's the heir to the throne. But they greatly underestimated the resilience of Iran. And it makes me wonder, again, what their motives low-key are, because they had to know that Iran had the types of stockpiles of missiles that it has. And just to give you the most recent update, just to show you, this is from tonight. This is apparently Tel Aviv. So this is tonight. Like, this is like recent footage of missile fire raining down on Tel Aviv. And we've seen a lot of strikes that have hit, and the Iron Dome doesn't seem to be working. So they called this Operation Epic Fury, which is, it's so I saw someone joking about the name of it. They called it like Operation Fresh Chungus or something like that. Was totally using like troll internet terms to classify this. But they are hitting American military bases all over the Middle East, and so far it looks like they've taken out quite a few of them. Now, there are also these reports about them hitting hotels, and one of my friends was asking me about this. I have a good friend of mine it's funny because he and I politically are kind of, polar opposites, but he was always the conservative guy who I argued with a lot. And I think that's one of the reasons my political kind of views have been shaped to be kind of like bipartisan, because one of my best friends has always been a very right-leaning guy. I'm always been a very left-leaning guy, but we always enjoyed kind of debating each other and like sharing news articles and that kind of stuff. So, this guy's a very close friend of mine. And he was the dude who kind of, he would send me like Buchanan articles, right, in the 90s. And looking back on it now, I mean, I told him the other day, I'm like, man, I got to give you credit, my friend. Conservatives are batting 5-0 with conspiracy theories. Think about it, 9/11, COVID, January 6th, the Epstein files. I mean, there's more I could list, but the Epstein files thing really hit me because I used to laugh. I remember on Facebook, all my conservative friends back in the day, they'd be like, secret pedophile ring. I'm like, you guys are tripping, dude. They were right. So this guy, just to kind of close the loop on this, was the guy who kind of red pilled me a little bit in the 90s. And now I look back and I go, holy shit, the AM radio people, I hate to say it because I hate Rush Limbaugh, but they were right about a lot of stuff. A lot of this kind of like occupied government stuff has been a thing with them. And the more I think back to Ron Paul, for example, because I was a big Ron Paul guy in 2012. And at that time, I was working heavily in corporate America, and I knew personally, I think he's unfriended me now on all my social media because I'm not, a good liberal. But this guy was a lawyer for the Clintons. He personally knew Bill and Hillary. And he was a big tech lawyer at one of the companies I worked at, and a great guy, he's a good dude. I'm not saying he's part of anything bad. I'm not even going to say his name, but when I started coming around to Ron Paul, he immediately was like, yo, that guy's a white supremacist racist, right? And I was like, no, I've never heard him say anything like that. And so it's fun. It's like the alarm bells go off now when you look at this stuff in retrospect, and it's like, oh wow, that it makes sense now. Everyone's a racist. Yeah, like these people who are America first or whatever, it's not that they like have legitimate concerns for America. They're just racist against Jewish people. They're anti-Semite isolationists. And this tactic has been used for years and years, but it doesn't work anymore because the internet cannot be corked. And that makes me happy. So what's up, Truth, man? It's been a minute since I've been able to jump on. No Himbo says it's crazy. But also, this is the thing that blows me away the most about this is because I admittedly try to be careful about the things I say online. I mean, you have to if you want to do this at all and not have your platform shut off. And so to me, what's the most telling about this is the reaction of the general public to Tel Aviv being shelled like it is. Everyone's like, yeah, fuck yeah. You get what you deserve, motherfuckers. And it feels almost like therapeutic in some ways to finally see these monsters that have just like totally, reigned the United States like a dog and used us for years and years to murder innocent people with our money. It's therapeutic to like see them getting hit in the way they're getting hit. And like Snow Himbo said, I keep seeing these reports too coming out that that Trump has now agreed to negotiate with Iran. And I think it's nonsense. It's these people. And it made me think, this is, I think, why there has been such a push recently. One of the reasons, I mean, there's many reasons, but one of the big reasons there's been such a push by the Ellisons to take over the U.S. media is so that they can just sculpt reality to their liking. And a good example of this is you keep seeing I keep seeing on Twitter all these posts with like, look, the Iranians are taking the street to cheer President Trump for bombing the shit out of their country and killing the Ayatollah. And it's like, first of all, my first question is, where do these people get all these Iranian flags? And why are there like hundreds of Iranian flags in DC? Remember when there were like anti-Ukraine war protests and there was suddenly like a bunch of people with Russian flags showing up and waving them? And that like, the Tulsi Gabbards or the people that were involved in that like Ukrainian kind of like, hey, let's not fight Russia thing at the time. Tulsi Gabbard's obviously come a long way. But, back then, it was very obvious what they were doing with the Russian flags. And now you see this concerted effort of these people to kind of, these terrible like Zio accounts, like trying to sculpt reality to their liking. So anyway, back to the whole thing about the hotels. So my friend, and this is the thing, this is what they do. They attack people and then go, oh, why are you hitting me? Play the victim card. And so my friend, who again runs in very conservative circles, he came to me this morning. He's like, dude, what's with them just randomly hitting hotels? Why do you think they're just like, that's weird that they're like killing civilians in hotels? And I was like, well, obviously Iran is evil and a bunch of terrorists, but here is a recent post I saw with some insight into that. Let me put this back on the stage for you. Hold on. We want this one. So in the lead up to this operation, which has been in the work for weeks, U.S. planners correctly understood that our bases in the region are indefensible. They decided to evacuate them, but there are tens of thousands of American service members in the Middle East. What do you do with them? You can't send your entire force back home in the middle of the largest military confrontation in years. Airlifting everyone to a country out of range of Iranian missiles like Egypt or Turkey would create an unacceptable amount of lag time for restaffing the bases. Dumping them in Israel, Iran's largest target, isn't an option. So they put them in hotels and apartments within driving distance of the bases, and this is the result. U.S. military presence in the Middle East. The United States has more than 50,000 troops stationed in the Middle East across a range of bases and regional commands. Major U.S. troop deployments. So here is 1,700 in Turkey, 900 in Syria, 10,000 in Kuwait, 500 in the Gulf, 5,000 in the UAE, 10,000 in Qatar, 4,700 in Bahrain, So, and then 4,000 down here in Djibouti and 6,000 in Egypt. So we have that country surrounded with bases, and I've been impressed at how kind of surgically they've just been kind of boom, 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 taking them out. And, you know, listen, I don't see this as an anti-American sentiment either. I see this as a humbling, a necessary humbling, because the U.S. for far too long has been the bullies of the world, has been the, like, you know, and this is just, it's like seeing the bully finally get his ass kicked by someone who knows jujitsu or something on the playground. You know, the guy who beats everyone up and takes their lunch money every day on the playground. All the kids are like, oh, fuck, here comes that guy again. Jesus Christ. And then he walks up to this little nerdy kid with glasses who's just minding his own business, building a Lego thing or something. He's like, hey, kid, give me your lunch money. And the kid's like, no, I don't want to give you my lunch money. And then the bully grabs him by his shirt and the kid flips him over, you know, and gets him in a headlock and, you know, threatens to put him to sleep. And the guy's like, oh, I won't, you know, and then the entire playground cheers. That's what's happening right now. And, you know, what's really scary about this is the whole Samson option and the idea that nuclear warfare could come into play. Because if Iran keeps going and, you know, they can't be stopped, will a nuclear option be used to stop them? And it kind of makes me wonder if that isn't a paper tiger to begin with. Because so much of what we thought we knew about reality, I mean, I correct me if I'm wrong here, but so many of the things I thought were real have totally dissolved over the last, you know, 10, 15 years. Like after the COVID thing, I don't believe the moon landing was real anymore. There's just too much about it that, and you call me crazy, you call me conspiracy theories, whatever. Like it doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense. It seems like, you know, what was I watching? So I was watching, I should pull up this clip if I can find it. Maybe, did he send me this? There's this clip of it was CNN, okay? And it was Dana Bash. If you know who Dana Bash is, I should try to find this clip. I should have saved it. Anyway, I'll just tell you about it. I'll put it in post if I need to. But anyway, it's this clip of a U.S. troop during the Ron Paul campaign talking to Dana Bash about, you know, Ron Paul and why he likes Ron Paul and all this stuff. And Dana Bash, just by the way she frames her question, you know, she was married to a CIA guy. She's a Zionist, you know, with ties to our best friend in the Middle East. But watching those news clips now in retrospect, you can totally see what they're doing. You know, it's so I think the genie's out of the bottle for the most part, and this is like kind of the last desperate gasp of the Zionist project. And this is kind of, there's this clip I want to play you from this band Strapping Young Lad, if you've ever heard of them. But this is what it made me think about. How do I add it? I think I can just drag and drop it. Oh, okay. I was hitting the wrong button. Forgive me. But this is how I that.
A great deal of money has been invested in this project, and we can't allow it to fail.
This is where the Zionist project is at.
A great deal of money has been invested in this project, and we can't allow it to fail.
So this is the last gasp of that. And good on Iran for standing their ground. Like I said, it puts me in an odd position because I don't want to see Americans get killed. But I also do feel like the United States needs a dose of reality, a good backhand across the face to remind us, like, snap out of it, like what. And the reality is, this is the interesting maybe not interesting, but maybe the most infuriating part about all of this is the public does not support this. The public did not vote for this. In fact, they voted for the opposite and were scammed by Trump, which is, I mean, the guy's a con man. But this is the thing. I want to caution some of my left-leaning friends who are dunking on like people like Dave Smith or, people who kind of were just like, okay, Trump is the best option. It just makes you look pathetic because there's two options really, and either one sucks. But with Trump, I did feel like, hey, there's a chance this guy's a little unhinged. Maybe he won't listen to these people. And so I can't blame anyone for taking that chance. And that's kind of like what the Dave Smiths or so I see all these like self-righteous left accounts like, all you podcasters who advocated for Trump should be ashamed of yourselves. You are unserious clowns and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, they're desperate people dealing with the heaps of shit that the two-party system deals us up. And there's a difference between idealism and pragmatism that I think the left really needs to grapple with, because idealism is important. You have to be idealistic, but you also have to deal with the reality on the ground. As much as I would love for Jill Stein to be president, it ain't going to happen soon. Does that mean I won't vote for her in elections? Of course not. Does that mean I wouldn't advocate for her if she was running? This kind of stuff. It's like you really have to start thinking in terms of, okay, what I want and what is actually possible. And I the other side of that argument is that you have, like, to give you a good example of this, which I bring up a lot, defund the police. Okay. This is how you start a real left argument. Defund the police. Then conservatives lose their fucking minds. You can't defund the police. Oh my God. And then you work to a central point from there, but you can't start it like, well, maybe we shouldn't just allow people to like shoot whoever they want and not get prosecuted. That's not where you start the argument if you want to win anything in the argument. So there is also, the flip side of what I'm saying here with the pragmatism is the idealism has to be intense, and you have to start your argument from an intensely, idealistic place maybe to get concessions from the other side. And I don't think that left and right are even a thing anymore. We've talked about this a lot, and it's when you look back now, go watch old media, watch election coverage from like even 5 years ago, 8 years ago, 10 years ago. Just watch it and look at how scripted and, designed to make people think a certain way. I mean, we all saw it with the Bernie thing. That was the thing that frustrated me the most. And when COVID hit and everyone kind of just hook, line, and sinker bought all the, everyone on TV is telling the truth now, I wasn't surprised, because when I was advocating for Bernie, there were plenty of liberal-minded people who I thought wanted the same policy wins as I did, no new wars, healthcare for all, Medicare for all, reasonable limits on judicial power, all these kinds of things, freedom of choice for women, bodily autonomy for women and people who don't want vaccines, all that kind of stuff. And then as soon as sexism gets brought up and this, like, oh, Bernie Sanders said Elizabeth Warren, it's like those same people suddenly are like, well, Bernie Sanders doesn't even have a vagina. And it's like, dude, I don't care what the gender or race of the person is. This idea that America is inherently racist or sexist is fucking patently false. Obama wouldn't have won election if America was inherently racist. What happened was America was like, okay, we got duped at the end of Obama, and we're not going to fucking fall for that bullshit anymore. Like, we're going to fuck you, and you're not going to let us have Bernie Sanders. So you're going to get Donald Trump Democrats. And I'm making this kind of long-winded, cavernous ascension to my point here is because with the Iran war, a good question to ask yourself is, where are the Democrats? What are they doing? Let's talk about it. So, first of all, this is one of my favorite examples of what the Democratic Party is. This Katie Porter thing right here just sums up better than any speech or policy platform or any evidence that I could dig up as to what the Democrats are in 2026 and like what they've kind of degenerated into is this.
Say it with me. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that's right. Fuck Trump.
Trump is an immoral fascist dictator who cheats on his wife and has sex with children. So we're going to scream the F word at you about it's just I can't wrap my head around how they still do this. I mean, I can when I consider the reality that, as the guy in the clip at the beginning of my stream says, the Democratic Party doesn't exist anymore. It's a hollowed out party. It's an entity. It's a donor vessel for donors. So they don't have to stand for anything. They're just a money laundering operation for dumb liberals who think that Trump is the end of everything was fine until Trump came along and invented lying. He ruined it. Everything was hunky-dory till Trump showed up. And all we have to do to win is say, fuck Trump. So this is where we're at with where the Democrats stand. And so then, to make it even better, here is the State of the Union address by my boy, retweeted by my boy Gabe Barista Paul here, one of the best accounts on Twitter. I say this all the time. Paul Sorrentino, Paul Sorrentino 3. Gabe Barista Paul, one of the best accounts on Twitter for consistently. But look at this. Elizabeth Warren and other Dems rising to applause Trump's posturing. I probably should have read the rest of that before I maximized it. Around a possible war with Iran over the false claim Iran is not relenting on rebuilding a nuclear bomb. So here's the receipts.
Some terrible people. They've already developed missiles that can threaten Europe and our bases overseas, and they're working to build missiles that will soon reach the United States of America. After Midnight Hammer, they were warned to make no future attempts to rebuild their weapons program, and in particular, nuclear weapons. Yet they continue starting it all over. We wiped it out, and they want to start all over again, and are at this moment again pursuing their sinister ambitions. We are in negotiations with them.
I got to say, again, I've said this before, but Trump sounds like one of those old people whose dentures are coming out when he talks. He has degenerated heavily over the last couple of years. Just listen to him. Like he talks like his dentures are about to slide out of his mouth.
They want to make a deal, but we haven't heard those secret words. We will never have a nuclear weapon. My preference.
For the patrons of Israel, please rise and applaud. Thank you. Thank you. There's Elizabeth Warren right there.
My preference is
so again, it was Jon Stewart who asked AOC this question. He's like, how do you square, because Jon Stewart asked AOC how she squares calling Trump a fascist with then giving him power to wage war with Iran like this. Trump's a fascist, but we have to stand with him on bombing Iran and giving Israel what they want in the fucking. It's like, how do you square the fuck Trump? And Trump is the worst thing ever, and our entire existence is built upon opposition to Trump. And then they stand up like, yay, we got to bomb Iran. We have to do it, you guys, for humanity and puppies and kitties and women. We have to do it for women. Women in Iran can't even do an OnlyFans account, you guys. Like, we got to get them free over there. I mean, Persian women are beautiful, so, but there's plenty of Persian women that are, sorry, I'm getting off on my no horny on the timeline here. So to continue down this road of what the Democrats are doing, which is hilarious, here's their most recent salvo And I'm kind of freestyling it today. I didn't really plan anything today. I'm just kind of freestyling on online because I didn't really want to take the time. I just figured I'm going to go through Twitter today. So I can't find the tweet, but all right, here it is. The Democrats' opposition to, or here's what the Democrats are going to do in response to Trump's illegal war with Iran. I know you're waiting patiently. I know you're sitting on the edge of your seat, waiting to figure out what the Democrats are going to do in response to Donald Trump's illegal war with Iran. Now I'm just trying to buy time while I find this tweet.
But ain't that America? You and me. Ain't that America?
Okay, here's what the Democrats are actually doing. All right, this is what I want to show you next, because I think this is one of the reasons Iran has been so effective at hitting the targets that they're going after. First of all, a lot of people weren't paying attention to this, but Russia developed hypersonic missiles that they've been using in Ukraine, which, again, another example of American propaganda, no news is good news type thing. But in addition to the hypersonic missiles that they got from Russia, they're also leveraging Chinese intelligence. So check this out. It's reported that China gave Iran satellite maps.
这是美军在中东规模最大、功能最核心的军事基地——卡塔尔乌代德基地。基地距伊朗仅有300公里，能容纳约1万美军，拥有。
Chinese is so cute. Like that little girl speaking Chinese. I just think of like a anime show or something. Runway 1 can accommodate aircraft, including the B-52 strategic, the main U.S. military aircraft, including transports, planes, takeoffs and landings, supported by a large number to reinforce ammunition. So this is what the Chinese have been giving to the Iranians as kind of a support method, as part of the BRICS partnership. And so it's interesting because I've heard a lot of people saying, oh man, what the hell? Why isn't Russia and China kind of engaged and tried to help Iran? I think behind the scenes, they kind of have. I think they're being, I will say this about Russia and China. Americans like to talk a lot. That's why we have stuff like this. And the Russians and the Chinese are much more deliberative, to use a term. And I think the Chinese are like, I don't think anyone could stop the Chinese if they wanted to take over the world, because stuff like this is a good example of how powerful their soft power is. For example, they make the chips in everyone's phones. I would not doubt you that they have chips in American military personnel phones that leak information to them all the time. I mean, obviously I'm not, I don't have evidence to back my theory up here, but I think it's a pretty valid assessment of the way the Chinese work and the level of power that they have. So the other thing I want to talk about is the casualty numbers, because I've heard a bunch of different reports on what the casualty numbers look like And I have a hesitation, obviously, to believe official American sources, but one estimate I heard was a 560 on the American side. And another estimate I've heard so far is 3, but it's changing all the time. And I just don't buy the official numbers ever on stuff like this. One of the things I do think is funny, going back to the Democrats for just a minute, is how you see this kind of concerted effort to come out and be like, well, there's no guilt on my head here because I voted for Kamala Harris, as if this would not be happening if Kamala Harris were president right now. That's the thing I think that the Democrats just don't understand, because they're dumb. And I kind of skipped over the whole AOC Jon Stewart thing, but the point that he made there was, I didn't skip over it, but the point again that he made was, how can you sit and call Trump a fascist and make your entire political platform about Trump being a fascist and then vote to give Trump all these powers to do wars with Iran, or to, unleash the National Guard into cities, or, all the ICE, like all the stuff that these people, the Democrats want to virtue signal on the surface that they're against Trump, but then they low key do everything Trump wants. So it's difficult to take them serious. And then you have, there's a lot of people like John Fetterman, for example, and a lot of the like CIA leaning Democrats who aren't even private about it. They don't even pretend to, they're like, oh yeah, we gotta, Trump is terrible, of course, but we do have to bomb the shit out of Iran. And so I've said this before, but I think it's funny that the American, the Epstein thing coming out kind of vindicated Iranians' claim that we are the great Satan. And so I think, again, going back to the therapeutic aspect of this whole thing, I think a lot of Americans see that. A lot of Americans agree with that, or understand that. They realize, I think Americans in general, I will say this, are smarter than the media gives us credit for. And I can say that with confidence because I do rideshare driving and I deal with a lot of different people. It's ramped up recently because obviously, it's work, money is tight and everything's super expensive. So I'm seeing a lot of different types of people and talking to a lot of different types of people all the time. And I think that's a good barometer, in different major metropolises too. So just by my conversations with a variety of different people from different walks of life, I can tell you from personal experience that people are smarter in America than they get credit for. So, and just so you guys know, outside of the country that might see us through the lens of, hey, Americans are dumb, arrogant bastards. We're not. I think most Americans are good people who, want the best for their neighbors and don't want to bomb Iran. Again, no one voted for this. I think it's like something like 20% of the population, which is a number I question too, supports this. So one of the first things I said when this broke out and it started going south is, okay, next, here's what's coming next: false flags. You're going to see terror attacks, quote unquote, in the United States by people claiming to be pro-Iran in order to whip up people into, just like post 9/11, hey, we got to do it. We got to go join the war effort. It wasn't even 10 minutes after I said that this popped up in my feed. New York Post: Austin bar mass shooter possibly motivated by Iran attacks. Quran found in car as FBI eyes terrorism after 2 killed. Yes, he just happened to have a Quran in his car. I mean, I'm sure Muslims carry those. So you see how sad and pathetic this has gotten. The attempts to manipulate perception. The internet cannot be corked. And you guys are not going to, you're not going to be able to do this to us anymore. So another part of this that I think is funny is you see stuff like this, right? You have this guy, Nick Sorter, and a lot of these conservative kind of talkers posting these, wow, the streets of Washington, D.C. are absolutely flooded with people cheering for President Trump's killing of Khamenei. We did it. We did it, you guys. We did it. So my question is, where does one buy bulk Iran flags? Look at that. And would buying an Iranian flag put you on a terrorist watch list? I'm just asking, how did these people get these flags? Hundreds of them. And it's funny because you see in the comments, one of these people, so right here I responded. This guy says, I'm old enough to remember when MAGA hated foreigners waving foreign flags in the street. I said, they're cool with it now because it's a bunch of Israelis pretending to be from Iran. It could be Persian Jews too. Whatever the case. It's not Iranians. This guy says, want to prove that? And I said, why don't you prove they're Iranian? To which the response was my crickets sample. So the propaganda is being laid on mad thick right now. If you go through Twitter, but there's also a lot of great stuff coming out. And I will say again, there was someone joked the other day, well, in 2 days, Facebook's going to find out there's a war in Iran. And I think that's accurate. Like Twitter is still, despite, whatever beefs people may have with it, it's still one of the better, it's still the best social media kind of platform. I hate using that term platform, but I think Dave Chappelle said it best when he said Twitter is the world's bathroom wall, because that's really what it is. So one of the things that I've taken to doing is just on threads that I think are warranted is posting this picture of George W. Bush giving the thumbs up in front of the Mission Accomplished banner. Massive pro-government crowd chants death to America in Iran. This footage is from May 23rd, 2024. Okay. Here's another great one. Dubai evacuation. So another one, and another one. Dubai is done. It will be nearly impossible for UAE to sell secure lifestyle to expats and investors now. Iran doing the world small favors here and there, putting a little humbling on us. Let's go to the comments for a minute. They fucked around, the thing. Yeah. On one hand, the internet is like a lot of things, right? It's a double-edged sword. On one hand, you have this kind of open dialogue, this kind of open flow of information now. On the other hand, you have intense surveillance and AI now to go through that surveillance. So everything that I'm saying right now is being documented, and I'm not like ignorant. I don't think the government doesn't know who I am, even though I wear sunglasses and a beanie, which I do, by the way, to keep you from being blinded by the shine of my bald head. But I wonder sometimes, how much of this is intentional being that the internet, is completely a U.S. military project and, funded by Google's funded by DARPA, there's all this proof of all this stuff. And honestly, I think, for the Western free thought or whatever, I don't think that, and I don't want to sound, what's the word? Chauvinist, like a Western chauvinist or whatever. But I do think that at their core, Western values of free speech, like you can say what you want, regardless of who it offends, regardless of, what it is. There's obviously consequences for saying certain things. Like if you threaten to kill someone, that there's consequences for that. If you shout fire in a crowded theater, all that stuff. But outside of that, it should be an open intellectual marketplace for ideas and debate. That core value, I think, is the best. Like, I think that's great. Like, that's the way it should be. I don't always think that it's honored in the way that it should be, but I guess the point I'm getting to is, if America is going to, or the West, or whatever you want to call it, the current, Epstein class or whatever is going to control the world, that's the way you do it, by just kind of letting people be free and take the road where it goes, right? But when you have this level of surveillance and kind of access to people, and then you now have AI tools to sort through it all at an efficient rate, there's obviously some downside, But again, I'm the eternal optimist in the sense that, look around, people aren't dumb. Whenever I see like a post on Twitter or Instagram or something, I'm like, oh, this will be good. I love going to the comments. I love sometimes I don't even like or comment myself. I just like read people's comments on different posts, and it's beautiful because people are not having it, and they're not afraid to say it either. And that's getting back to what I was saying at the beginning. I do think, I've self-censored. I'm sure you all have too. I'm sure there's certain stuff you're like, whoa, I think this, but I don't know if I should say it out loud because I might want to have a job tomorrow type thing, And I think that Americans are finally coming around intellectually to the reality that, like, it matters what the intent, like, regardless of what a word says, like the F word, the FAGGOT word, or the N word or whatever, regardless of whether or not these words get used by someone is irrelevant. Like, what's important is the intent behind these words. So the anti-Semitism thing, I think, has exposed this on a level that is just, fundamentally great. Like, it's actually a good thing because now people are asking questions like, okay, well, what is a Semite? Oh, okay, well, how is it anti-Semitic to say Israel shouldn't, just indiscriminately kill whoever they want when they go to war? How is that anti-Semitic? Like, so I do like that this stuff is being litigated on a level that it never has been before. And I think that's good for everyone. And we'll see where it goes, but I am a little bit of a Western chauvinist in that respect. And let's go back to some tweets now. There is, again, this whole thing about Kamala Harris and how if you just would have voted for Kamala Harris, none of this would be happening. I would argue the opposite. I would argue that it probably would have happened a lot quicker and there'd be a lot less kind of backlash to it if Kamala Harris were president. And I came with receipts for that because this is an actual report from the campaign kind of making my point. Before the Kamala, this is Push Dems Left, who I don't always agree with, but before the Kamala wouldn't have done this freaks resurface, let's remember she literally campaigned on being tougher on Iran than Trump and at the behest of Israel, of course. Harris to Jewish voters from Times of Israel. All options on the table to stop Iran from going nuclear. In pre-election high holidays call, U.S. Vice President says diplomatic solution. Still preferable to keep Islamic Republic from the bomb. Charges Trump won't stand by. So, and here's the other thing. Harris suggested that Trump would not stand by Israel. She noted that in 2020, he chose not to retaliate when Iran fired missiles at U.S. bases. So you have to be completely stupid to think for a second that this would have turned out different if Democrats had won the election. You have to be a complete and total retard, to use a musical term. That means slow down. And I would argue, and I have argued, that it's great that Trump won for this reason alone, for a couple reasons, okay? One of my most popular tweets last week was when I responded to someone who was bashing the left for not voting for Kamala. And I just said, hey, thanks for admitting that the left is an important part of the voting block. You need to win. You're admitting, oh, thanks a lot, left, for not voting for Kamala. Now Trump is bad. F Trump. You're tacitly, you'll sit, these people will sit and say, and again, this is how you know the Democratic Party is just basically a fundraising money laundering op for never Trumpers at this point, like the Lincoln Project and the Misalis brothers who run Midas Touch, which ironically, I'm taking sidebars here, but I made a post about Midas Touch on TikTok, and all I did was say, hey, this is what Midas Touch is. It's these brothers that are anti-Trump, and they took all this money from liberals, and Rolling Stone did a report about how none of the money can be traced. It just goes out to different places, and it's kind of suspicious. And TikTok banned that video. So this is the Democrats. Their tepid response to Trump doing war with Iran, first of all, they cheered it, So they're in this very impotent position of having to kind of, pretend that they are against Trump, but also supporting all the shit that their donors like that Trump is doing. And it's just it's so patently transparent and pathetic. And then, you have people, you have this kind of thing where these people are trying to act like there would be the only difference between, here's me saying false flags,
to prevent you from wanting to vote.
The only real difference between Trump and Kamala is if Kamala was president right now, you would have a bunch of liberals going, yay, look what the girl boss did to Iran. She got that guy. Girls rock. And I agree. I think girls do rock, and I believe they could they could be just as big a cucks to Israel as Trump is. Any woman could just be just as big of a simp for Israel as any man president. I'll tell you that right now. So at least, and this was my argument during the election, at least with Trump at the helm, you might have liberal opposition to wars. You don't, because they're not afraid to show you who they really are. But this is where we're at. Now, on the other side of this, I've been kind of seeing this woman whose son just joined the Navy. And I actually told her this. I felt bad. I was like, I wouldn't want my kids in the armed forces right now because they're going to die for another country, or, oil or lithium, you name it. But a lot of people, I see a lot of the military people kind of even not really getting on board with this. So let's go back to Twitter for a second. Facebook going to be lit when they find out about the Iran war next month. This guy right here, S.L. Kanthan, has had an interesting character arc. He's one of those people who suddenly became very like voice of America type guy, if you know what I mean. Voice of propaganda, VOP. Should make our own channel called Voice of Propaganda, where I just kind of word stuff that Voice of America says. But he says the fall of the Islamic regime in Iran will be the biggest geopolitical event since the fall of the USSR. Combine that with the fall of the loony Chavismo revolution in Venezuela, the impact is manifold. He uses big words like manifold. Let's do a real quick. Just want to see where this guy's located at. Of course. Of course. That's how you know these guys are collecting the checks, right? So another thing about this that I think is interesting that not a lot of people are currently discussing is, where's Netanyahu? He's really the one who started this war, and he's nowhere to be found. He hasn't made a statement yet, to my knowledge. He hasn't come out and said, oh, here's why we did what we did. I don't even know exactly. I know that the attack started at 3 a.m. But here's a quick update as to where we're at right this moment, because I just happened to see this. And this thing is going up the escalation ladder. Breaking: Germany, France, and the UK are getting ready to join the US and Israel to carry out strikes against Iran. We are on the brink of World War III, all to protect and defend the pedophiles in the Epstein files. France, UK, and Germany stay ready to work with US regional allies to defend interests against Iran. And I think a lot of this is because Iran has now shut down the Straits of Hormuz, which is another reason I foolishly thought Trump would not allow this to start, because I thought, oh, well, that'll fuck the economy to no end if he allows that to happen right before the midterms. And there you have it. We're going to see probably gas prices triple, which, as you know, has a proportional effect on other prices because everything is shipped via trucks, which have to use gas to get around. Imagine if we had not spent the last, 50 years bombing and invading other countries, and instead invested in a modern electricity grid and solar power and clean energy, and become completely independent from the black slop in the ground that we have to burn to run our engines currently. It's so primitive. And if you've ever driven a Tesla or an electric car, I know Elon Musk is persona non grata in a lot of circles, but you got to give the guy credit for making electric cars sexy. And Teslas are great cars. I don't care what anyone says, regardless of politics, whatever. I'm not one of those people. It's like people that are mad about Chick-fil-A. Back in the day, like there was this whole thing about how Chick-fil-A, the CEO donated to some anti-gay thing. And so people are like, oh, Chick-fil-A is anti-gay. And it's like, bro, have you ever been to Chick-fil-A? First of all, every fucking Chick-fil-A employee I've ever met is gay, first of all. But second of all, if you dig into the personal donations of the CEO of any company you buy shit from, you're going to find shit you don't like. I can almost guarantee you that the owner of McDonald's funds like dead babies in Israel or some weird, that was a joke, of course, but something you can find to be outraged about in their financial dealings, no doubt. So you would basically just, this might be good for America, be sitting at home, not going anywhere and cooking your own food that you grew yourself, because you'd be boycotting every big company in the world if you did that, which again would be probably a good thing for America. I know for me personally, not to get too far down a personal sidetrack, but one of the big things, if you look at video of me now versus, 3 years ago or whatever, when I started, by the way, I'm only to like This is my 132nd episode. I really am off my game on this. I'm only 100. I've been doing this for like 2 years. I'm like 130 episodes. But anyway, point being is eating better and like cooking my own food, I make my own bread. I try not to consume seed oils. It's completely changed my fucking life. So at least RFK's doing some of that shit, despite the weird other shit that guy's and the hypocrisy around the glyphosate shit that Jimmy Dore was covering the other day, and a lot of people have been talking about. It's kind of like it sucks, and I could, on Rogan, RFK's like, look, I'm unhappy about it, but also again, the people that you have to balance between pragmatism and idealism at all times. You have to understand that, like, look, while it would be great if RFK could just go in and like flip the entire fucking world on its head and just say like, hey, no more Monsanto, who knows what kind of pressures are on someone in that position. And I'm not saying that, like, I'm not trying to give the guy a pass or anything. I think people are too enthusiastic about throwing the baby out with the bathwater sometimes when, look, I've been promised as a former Democrat, I've been being promised change incrementally, and the increments just get smaller and smaller throughout the years. You're like, we're going to have healthcare in 2 years. Okay. Maybe 12 years. Okay. We're going to kind of have it where like you have to pay for like the subsidy market thing. And then like, oh, never mind. Like, it's just incrementally, we're going to give you a little bit. Voting is not going to change unless, and here's to kind of wrap this up a little bit. Here's my honest take on a strategy for voting for the future. If to actually maybe change things electorally. And this is something I've talked about with conservatives who are, far more to the right than I am. Both sides of the aisle, whether you lean Democrat or you lean Republican, whether you lean right or you lean left, commit not to vote for a member of either major party. So if you're a right-leaning person, a Republican, you vote Libertarian or America First Party or whatever the fucking right-leaning third parties are. And if you're a left-leaner Democrat voter, you vote for like the Socialist Party or the Green Party or one of the more left-leaning parties. You make a commitment, all voters, conservatives and liberals, make a commitment to each other to say, look, we are going to ignore the duopoly this election. We're going to ignore the Democrats and the Republicans. We're going to ignore their marketing. We're going to only support candidates that are grassroots funded through small dollar internet donations like Bernie Sanders and Ron Paul were. And if you could get a consensus among people through the internet for this type of action, I think that could actually markedly change things. Because in one cycle, say like it marginally worked and you got like 3 or 4 independent candidates from each side of the aisle in one cycle, that would have the fucking major parties shitting their pants and tripping over themselves to change for the better. I mean, I still wouldn't trust them, of course, because they've historically proven who they are. But what do you think? I mean, I think that's a strategy that could actually move the needle if people came together, working class people came together and we said, hey, look, I know you hate Trump and liberal. I know you hate Trump and conservative. I know you hate Hillary Clinton. I know you hate Obama. I hate him too. I voted for him and I hate him. A lot of MAGA people hate Trump now. So it's ripe for the picking, this strategy. So we all get on the, start some kind of email chain or text thread or whatever. Remember those chain letters your grandma used to send you about Obama? So anyway, we do that. We all get together and we say, look, nope, no Republicans, no Democrats. You're going to vote. Pick a third-party candidate of your choice, small dollar donations only. Make sure that they're not funded by any of the big PACs. And we let all those consultant class dipshits wallow in their fucking money chambers together. like Scrooge McDuck. I used to work in advertising. I know how that world works. I was part of it, unfortunately. I didn't do anything too regrettable. I did campaign for Obama and Bernie Sanders, though. That is regrettable at this point, especially Bernie Sanders. Wow. Holy shit. Like Obama, with Obama, the naivete, I think, was a little more understandable because he was the first black president, and he's really smart, like intelligent, well-spoken dude. And he made, much like Trump, a lot of promises that he absolutely did not keep. It's what politicians do. I don't know if you noticed that. But that's how we change things. That's how we change the dynamic electorally. And again, I think it's possible. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think that's possible. I mean, I come from the era of Bernie Sanders, Howard Dean, and Ron Paul. All three. Remember, if you weren't around during the Ron Paul era, this is what we did. We would do these. It was so brilliant, and it was such a brilliant execution of socialism, or kind of community working together on the internet, community organizing via the internet. We would go, okay, fundraising deadline's about to hit. Everyone give a $3 donation to Ron Paul. And so like 500,000 people give a $3 donation to Ron Paul. All of a sudden he's got this huge fucking take, and I'm sure it was more than 500,000. I'm sure it was more than $3, but you get the idea. Like with Bernie, I think it was $7 or whatever. And all of a sudden we willed Ron Paul into the news cycle that way by strategically going like, okay, let's money bomb him right before the filing deadline. So now CNN and all these dumb cunts in the media have to go like, oh, Ron Paul, oh shit, here's Ron Paul. And a lot of that logic was used during the Bernie years too. There were a lot of people from the Ron Paul campaign that moved into the Bernie campaign with the same level of strategic skill and organizing. The problem is we had massive, massive corporate interests in the form of the Democratic Party working against us. And at the end of the day, despite winning, they're like, we have lawyers and money to stomp you guys. Fuck you. We're going to put in we're going to put in the person that will cheer for bombing Iran and letting illegal aliens into the country at will to take your jobs for the Koch brothers cheap labor program. We're going to put that person in. And just going back to the whole, lefties stomping on people who voted for Trump or who advocated for Trump, you have to remember that even despite all the bullshit that's going on with Trump, the Iran war, like all the expected Zionist shit from either party that was going to happen, whether you voted for Trump or Kamala, despite all that, just look at like how many people that are so awful and so pathetic are just like seething with rage about Trump. Like that alone makes me sleep better at night. That like Nancy Pelosi is so upset and Hillary Clinton and, fucking Keith Olbermann and all these, like Keith Olbermann's inconsequential, but you know what I mean? Like these types of people, these fucking like, what's the best word? I had the word is like right on the tip of my tongue. These like, they're just indefensible. I can't think of the word right now. It was like right there. Anyway, just that alone. And I will say there is plenty of stuff that Trump has done that is good. He decriminalized pot. Now, I read some shit about that. Mysteriously, the judge who was supposed to like keep that legislation moving resigned from his position, and they haven't appointed anyone else yet. We'll see how that goes. That was 10 months ago or something. Couldn't be, alcohol and tobacco money paying off judges to hold up a fucking. But that's the kind of shit you're up against again, which here I go, back to defending people who voted for Trump or people who I didn't vote. So I'm not trying to take credit for anything that Trump does, but I also very loudly said lesser of two evils. Absolutely. I still believe that. I think it's pretty evident because if Kamala had won, this would all be happening right now. And all the fucking liberals would be like, yay, we did it, guys. Woo. Our girl boss took out the evil dictator of Iran. Aren't you so happy? Let's go to brunch. And I think Trump is a better figurehead for the decline of the empire because he unmasks it completely. And what people like Kamala Harris and Obama and Hillary and all the Democrats do is they put a fucking friendly fucking mask on the disgusting pig fucking empire that the United States is. And again, I love the United States. This isn't about the people of the United States. The people of the United States clearly don't matter. The pig empire doesn't do anything that they're voted to do. And it's like with Trump, it's like I can't be mad at people who took a chance and said like, okay, like we know we're going to get a bowl of dog shit regardless of which party wins the election. Which bowl of dog shit might have sprinkles on it? Well, this one. Okay, this guy's probably the better choice. And again, I still believe that fully. And we're going to see how this plays out. The rumor is right now that Trump has already tried to resume negotiations with Iran as an off-ramp because they're fucking kicking his ass. And they said no. And that's probably why they're drawing in UK and France. Watch what happens when French and European soldiers start getting killed. You know? And I really, you know, it sucks, but I really do. I hope that this fucking ends in failure for the US and the EU allies. I really do. I would not fight in this war. Also, this enrages me when you think about this. More than twice now, our supposed enemies have come to the table for good faith negotiations with us, with Iran right now. There was a report that came out that's with fucking Witkoff and all those slime bags that Trump is using as negotiators that they were close to a deal. And Iran was willing to fucking be conciliatory on a lot of stuff that they probably shouldn't have been conciliatory on. Let's be honest. I think this is the best, despite what's probably happening to their cities. I think this is probably the best. China and Russia will help them rebuild. The good countries in the world, the countries that aren't full of empire pig cunts, will help them eventually. And I think they are helping, as we showed. China's helping them with intelligence, and I think Russia's helping them with weaponry. But there is this disgusting aspect to this where these people come to the table to negotiate in kind and in good faith with the United States, and then we fucking kill their leaders. We allow these unhinged, vapid cunts to just attack and kill their leaders as they're trying to be men of honor are coming to the table and trying to work things out like adults, and men of, not even men, pigs of dishonor just go and kill their leadership like it's some kind of cool sneaky thing we did. You fucking slimy pigs. The most and again, this is why I will be it's therapeutic to see Israel on fire. They deserve this. And the Americans that support this shit and that support that think that to be a dishonorable slimy pig cunt and go behind people, you know, when a man of honor approaches you and tries to negotiate in good faith with you, and then you go and kill people, kill civilians, kill little girls, it's fucking disgusting. It's fucking disgusting. If I was in the military, I would have fucking abandoned ship a long time ago. And I think a lot of Americans are going to go not necessarily the Aaron Bushnell route, but the like, fuck you route. Like, this is not what I'm about. This is not what it's about. But also, I think that the United States has vastly overplayed its hand over the last couple of years. And I think Trump is just the dumb enough guy to listen to these pigs around him. And who knows what Trump is up against too. You know, I don't want to, I feel like someone that's in the position that like a Trump is, or Obama, or any of these presidents, like there's a lot of pressure on them. And I'm not I'm not condoning them or trying to give them a pass or anything, but who knows what kind of pressure Trump has at his back? What kind of knife or gun is at his back? You don't know. Because look what they did. You look at Kennedy, you look at the way that they got rid of Nixon, it's very clear that the Epstein class has tricks up their sleeves and wields enough power and enough lack of consciousness and enough lack of humanity to just kill whoever they want for their, lust for fucking empty material things and fucking disgusting pig fucking fantasy shit. Sorry. It just really upsets me because, again, the American people voted against this. We don't want this. No one in America is cheering for war with Iran. Look around America. The enemy, and I said this to this guy earlier. I said the enemies of America aren't in Iran, they're in DC. And a lot of people have said this. But I also tweeted this out earlier. I'm like just reciting my tweets now, but I had some good ones. I had some bangers recently. I said, if Iran hit Washington, D.C. right now with a long-range missile, the vast majority of America would cheer if Iran regime changed the United States. So, and what really gives me, and I'll probably start to wind down on this note of optimism. I think what really makes me feel better or gives me kind of allows me to cling to a sense of hope is the fact that I see a lot of other people out there that feel just like I do and aren't afraid to say it anymore. So if you're one of those people, God bless you. We don't hate America. We don't hate freedom. We hate the slimy pig cunts the Epstein class, if you will, who don't represent the will of the American people, who are slimy, self-interested, disgusting, Jabba the Hutt blobs of flesh that, and I don't advocate violence against anyone, no matter how disgusting they are. You're just lowering yourself or bringing yourself down to their level or lower if that's what you have to do. I do advocate for a good verbal berating because it's therapeutic and, in their case, warranted all day, every day. If I saw Chuck Schumer or, Randy Fine or what's the fucking Speaker Johnson or any of those cunts in public, I would say the same things to them. I'm saying to you right now, you're slimy pig cunts who don't represent the actual will of the American people. And if you sleep at night, you don't deserve to. And I wish you nothing but the worst because you have done nothing but the worst for the country. You're terrible people and you're ruled by a gigantic, throbbing ball of slime that needs to fucking dissolve. Anyway, that felt good. How are things going to unfold? The next couple days, I think, are going to be very telling. With, now you have Europe jumping in. It's like, hey, Europe's like, hey, guys, we're busy losing a war in Ukraine right now. You want us to come over and help you lose to Iran? We're jumping in. Losers on parade right now. Who in Europe or the United States wants to go fight in these wars? I mean, that's why when you hear about the casualties and stuff, a lot of the people that are fighting, like definitely the Americans that are fighting in Ukraine and are mercenaries, paid fucking, we don't have a draft anymore. But also, I feel bad. I've talked to several military people, and I feel bad for them. I've driven a lot of military people who are not white, who are Hispanic and Black. And a lot of them are forced into that out of economic opportunity, lack of economic opportunity. And now they're going to be made cannon fodder for a bunch of slimy pig cunts on the world stage. And so, we'll see how that plays out. But I could see a lot of them taking it upon themselves to abandon their posts. And I would not blame them if they did. So to close out here, Tim Dillon was talking about the state of things in America the other day. And he was talking about this report about a guy who, a homeless man who had been arrested for eating human flesh. Like the guy was caught eating a human leg that was kind of like left over after someone was hit by a train. And the first thing I will say about this, which is it was a very interesting broadcast by Tim. I love Tim Dillon so much. Obviously emulating him to some degree, but he made this great point about how if you get hit by a train, you deserved it. It's like one of those things that I never really thought about that much, but it's like, yeah, that is true. Like you know where it's coming, you know where it's at, you can hear it, you can see it, you got plenty of time. Unless you're like a disabled person or you were tied down by a guy with a twisty mustache and a top hat, like you deserved it. So he's like, so the person who got hit by the train deserved to get hit by the train, first of all. Then again, maybe this guy put them on the tracks so he could eat their leg. You never know. Anyway, the point Tim was getting to is that society has decayed to a level where that's happening. And second of all, that he was talking about how AI is about to make it worse. And how for a long time, and this is why I encourage all of my left-leaning laptop class friends to engage with your homies in the blue-collar world of trades and working with your hands, because this has been the trajectory I've been on myself. You know, I talk a lot about how I used to work in digital advertising and the online e-commerce ecosystem, even in the adult internet space for a while. And over the last several years, I've kind of been getting back to basics and doing more things with my hands, doing more things for myself, and being like trying to be more independent of for a scenario when if a grid goes down or whatever, it's like, okay, I'm here, I'm self-sufficient. And I think a lot of you should definitely keep that kind of thought process running in the back of your head, because what AI is about to do is take away a lot of people's jobs. And the point that Tim Dillon was making is that, you know, there's always kind of been this laptop class, which I was a part of, the white collar office people who invented things like microaggressions and DEI, those brilliant brilliant white collar class, the overly managed, intellectually nerfed class, if you will. They've always been able to sit at the, you know, go to their luncheons and their conventions and stay in nice hotels and eat, you know, great food on the company dime and all that stuff, and look down on like the plumbers and the mechanics and the guys who, the grease monkey types, the grimy, like work with your hands type of people. And that dynamic is about to be flipped on its head, because AI is going to take their jobs. If you're an accountant, bye. Not necessary anymore. Sorry. The world I worked in, digital advertising, like campaign management and stuff like that, it's all going to be done by AI. No use for that. I did fraud detection too. I did a lot of like just stuff that was mechanical but needed a human element to it, you know? So I think, you know, as this war rages on in a place that we can't see, you know, that's the other side of, I think, this Iran thing that I leave the table with thinking about is, as bad as this all looks to us on social media and TV and stuff, like, do you know people that are there? Because if you do, you obviously have a window into it that a lot of people don't. But also, I think about my own personal experience where, like, for example, living in LA, whenever there's a fire, people will call me from across the country like, are you okay? It's like, dude, it's not near as bad as it looks in the press. They hype it up. They emotionally manipulate people. And this is no different. So like, as much of this stuff is therapeutic, like maybe the video we're seeing isn't even real. It could all be AI. Who fucking knows? So keep that in mind. And also in the back of your mind, keep this thought process of, you know, the dynamic is about to flip. If it hasn't already, I mean, I think I'm not even saying that the dynamic's going to flip. I think being able to work with your hands has always been valuable, and it's something I've always been able to do, despite being a computer fucker and one of those and weaseling my way into that desktop class, which I don't belong in. I don't have a college degree. I was an imposter in the white collar world. I kind of snuck my way in there through, you know, climbing the ladder from different jobs and everything, because I didn't go to college. I don't have a fucking crackerjack box degree, but I'm way smarter than a lot of people I know who did go to college, which, you know, take that for what it's worth. It's obviously my self-serving opinion, but keep in mind that doing things like being able to cook for yourself, change your own tire, you know, that kind of shit is where your head should be at for the future, because it's going to get to a point where, I mean, I have trouble. I've had trouble. People I know that are close friends of mine that are, you know, well credentialed, that do have college degrees, are having trouble finding jobs already. So when this AI thing really kicks into high gear, it's going to be even worse, because a lot of these people are going to have no jobs. And then, as Tim was kind of suggesting, they're going to be the ones eating, you know, random legs from the sides of the train tracks. In a few years, it's about to get really crazy. And this Iran thing, it seems like, well, it clearly is an act of desperation. You know, it's as was the Venezuela thing. You know, the world is crumbling around, and the United States is desperately clinging to, you know, the illusion that it's this world controlling power. And this is the thing again. I think that the United States does control the world in a lot of ways through culture, through media culture, the internet being a great example. I mean, everyone in the fucking world has an iPhone and an internet connection now. So it's kind of like we already won in that regard. Why do we need to keep bombing people? You know what I mean? Like it's like, dude, if we really wanted to like go to like Finland, for example, let's say the U.S. decide, like, I'm just pulling that out of my ass because of Greenland. Let's say like we decide, okay, we want Finland. Like, dude, Finland's connected to the internet. We fucking have access to everyone's phone. We could fucking propagandize them all to believe some sects in Finland are fighting, like flood their social media with a bunch of AI videos of like shit in the streets and get them into conflict and then invade and take over. Like, why do we need to bomb countries? It doesn't make any sense. But it seems like that situation I just gave you with Finland is kind of what we've actually been doing. It's called a color revolution. We've been doing it since the Obama years. And people are, I think, getting wise to it. You know, I often wonder if the militarization, because Europe used to be like our liberal older cousin who, you know, went to college and raised plants and read poetry, you know, and now Europe is militarized as fuck. I think largely thanks to things like Facebook and Instagram, because the United States is able to feed them our propaganda now at a global scale. Whereas, you know, it was a little bit less intrusive when it was a television screen, because you can't algorithmically target people with a television screen. It's not like this is every bit of you know, on these phones they're collecting so much data. They know like what you focus on, what you stop on, what makes your brow furrow. God, I've been addicted to Twitter for the last 2 days. It's like like physically I had to like tear myself away from my phone to go do things and like be productive. And I'm just like, oh, like, dude, get the fuck off of it. Get off. You know, and so I see it in myself. Anyway, let's go to the comments before we start to like close this thing out today. Teslas suck and break down. Listen, every car breaks down. You've never driven a Tesla, have you? Like that's the kind of thing that someone who has never driven a Tesla. There was a whole thing a while back where they're like, look at all these Tesla batteries exploding on the highway. And I'm like, okay, that's like 3 Teslas that exploded. How many hundreds of thousands of gas-powered cars, which are literally carrying a bomb underneath them in the form of a gas tank, a fucking tank full of explosive fuel. Electric cars do not have that. Yeah, the fucking battery might start on fire if you get in a really, really bad accident. But like, how dumb do you have to be to think that an electric car is somehow more dangerous? And listen, I'm a little biased. I drive an electric car. So, and it's fucking the next level of car. If you've never driven one, I recommend trying it because it's a better car. I hate to break, if you're a hot rod guy, cool. Like I love, if that's your passion, like the combustion engine and whatever, it's like people who love antiques. You're into old stuff. Great for you. There's new stuff that's better. I'm sorry to break that reality to you that you're an antique guy now. If you're a hot rod dude who loves like combustion engines, that shit is outdated. The modern electric engines have far more torque. They're faster, lighter, more agile cars. They're just better cars empirically. So, despite the propaganda that the oil and gas industry and the deeply embedded American automotive industry want to sell you. You can't. So here's the other thing. You can fix them by yourself. And guess what? There's no maintenance. There's no transmission on an electric car. There's no oil changes. The only maintenance on an electric car is tires and brakes. And, people will argue, oh, well, I have an older EV. It's from 2021. Sure, there's stuff that could go out on it that I would have to take to a mechanic to fix, just like I would with a normal car. The difference now is the labor is also much cheaper. And like to do things like change a light bulb, you fucking go to YouTube, search, how do I change a light bulb on blank model, blank, year of car. And then you go buy the fucking light bulb off Amazon and you fix the problem. It's like, there's a lot of fear that's being spread. And again, if you're someone who loves old school cars, good on you. You're an antique guy, but that's on you. You're an antique guy. You like old outdated things. He didn't promote. Oh yeah. People arguing in the fucking. Yeah. Listen, I was wrong. I didn't vote for Trump, but again, I think, tell me if I'm wrong about this. Of the 2 major party options, was he not the better option empirically? Just even if you just base it on Robert F. Kennedy, and a lot of people give Tulsi Gabbard shit. She's a sellout. Where is she right now? But again, it comes back to the pragmatism versus idealism thing. Like, who better to be director of national intelligence than Tulsi Gabbard? Like, name me someone better that has a shot at getting in there that you think, like, who do you think Trump should have appointed instead of Tulsi that would have been better? Like, if you can give me that answer and I'm like, oh, okay, fuck, dude, you're right. I'll admit I'm wrong. But like, that's the thing with like some of the people who are in the podcast left space that are just like constantly like berating and hating on Tulsi Gabbard. It's like, dude, tell me who would be like, sure, again, you don't know what kind of pressures are on her, but like, this is a woman who has a history of, first of all, basically coming out against the Democratic Party because they were cheating Bernie Sanders. Someone who's seen war firsthand as a medic, so it's like throw the stupid cliches. You can't let the perfect be the enemy good, or the enemy of the good, or throwing out the baby with the bathwater. American politics is not a zero-sum game. Like, it's a game of compromise. You have to fucking have these people who are mediocre or might not be on the same page with you on everything, or might be experiencing pressures that you don't see. Like with Trump, again, it's like, who knows what kind of fucking pressures the guy's up against? Who knows if he's even fucking the one making the decisions? Like with the Israel-Iran thing, I like the way he looked when he was announcing it. It almost looked like he was fucking flabbergasted to the point where he's like, dude, I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want to announce this. And I'm just basing that on my own personal gut feelings. I'm not giving him a pass. Like, his whole thing was, his whole appeal was, he's the guy who's a big enough asshole to say no to people like Netanyahu, right? Like, I think that was, if you can distill Trump's appeal to the average voter down to any one thing, I think that's it. Like, he's a big enough asshole that he'll tell the people I don't like to go fuck off or tell them no. And clearly that's not the case with our good friends in the Middle East, but I think it has been the case on things like Europe. Like, you look at the Ukraine thing, right? The dynamic, people are completely forgetting about that now, of course. But there's a clear dynamic there where Trump is honestly trying to make efforts to end that war, and the Europeans are trying to stop him very vehemently, to the point where I still see people on Twitter, Trump's working for Putin. John Cleese from Monty Python, who I love, and I'm not going to, disown him or block him because he's dumb about Putin, but he is dumb about Putin because he believes the European propaganda that Putin's trying to take over Europe, and the Ukraine war was unprovoked and we didn't have anything to do with that. Let me tell you, Russia just barreled in there for no good reason. God, people are so dumb. So here we are at this precipice. But the thing about Trump again is he was the lesser of the two evils, because again, the Democrats would be doing all the same stuff as they've shown you, as they showed you by cheering it at the State of the Union, as they shown you by going like, how do we oppose Trump on this? Like, we'll have a Zoom call and talk about it. Like AOC, her dumb response at the Munich Security Council thing about Taiwan and stuff. It's like, dude, can you guys grow a pair? That's another reason Trump won, because it's actually refreshing to just hear someone, regardless of how dumb they are or how uninformed their opinion is, just say what they think instead of going like, well, what would my donors want me to say? What will my voters want me to say? Let me carefully parse this. So, which is what AOC was doing when they asked her about the Taiwan thing. She's like, okay, you could see the gears in her brain. Like, how do I say this in a way that doesn't upset these donors, but also makes my voters think that I'm like a strong lefty woman? That's exactly why she froze up like a deer in the headlights during that question and answer section. That's exactly why, because she's trying to fucking parse her words and go like, how do I say this in them, instead of just going like, look, the United States needs to stay the fuck away from China. The United States has enough problems on its own soil that it doesn't need to be worrying about what China's doing with Taiwan. Like, make a deal with them, buy their fucking chips, whatever you want to do. Like, do you think Chinese people are like, what if the United States invades Cuba or what? Like, who fucking cares? Like, let's focus on what's important, which is the United States and the problems, the vast amount of problems that we have here. And another thing, in my travels as a rideshare guy driving around dilapidated dystopian American cities and talking to a variety of different people, I've noticed that this isn't a blue state or a red state problem. This is homelessness, fentanyl addiction, all the poverty, the fucking like degradation of the American landscape. It's an American problem. It ain't a California problem. Yeah, California has a lot more of it because there's a lot of people concentrated there. It ain't a Texas problem. It ain't a Florida problem. It ain't a New York problem or a Chicago problem. It's an American problem. So this whole dividing us up into little baskets of fucking red and blue characters, or pro Trump versus pro Kamala characters, or racist anti-Semite versus heroes of the fucking new century characters, whatever you want to fucking wherever you want to draw the lines, it doesn't do us any good. So I am optimistic about the reality that a lot of you guys are smart, intelligent, information seeking people like myself who just want to know what the truth is and don't care who it makes look bad, even if it's ourselves. And that's why I'm optimistic. So the optimism you speak of stems from realization that this is all coming to a head, to an end, but the ruling class will adapt, change tactics, and get more desperate. Things will get more. Oh, did it cut off? He must have just ran out of maybe you're on Rumble or something. But no, you're on YouTube. I don't know why that whole comment didn't come through. No, you're right. I think that is the reality. It's funny to see the whole Epstein thing kind of as a breaking point for all of us, because it just, the biggest takeaway from that whole thing isn't, Democrat, Republican, Trump's bad, or Bill Clinton's bad, or Bill Gates is bad, or whatever, like any of that stuff. It's just like that Epstein dump just shows you how fucking fake and gay, as to use a Candace term, everything is. How fake and contrived our entire ruling class political dialogue is. The idea that like we're voting for someone who's going to change things. The Epstein, that's why they didn't want it released. Like it just shows you that like all these people are working together. Anyone who gets into any like position in the halls of power, or like stardom world, famous like Hollywood or DC, anyone who gets into those elite circles, they're all working together. They're all like, all the people clutching their pearls over Trump are helping him do other things on the sly, like Chuck Schumer or Nancy Pelosi, or fucking AOC. And the same applies to everything. That's why you have, both Bill Gates and fucking Prince Andrew and fucking, Bill Clinton and Donald Trump, or fucking, just all these. And the whole thing, like one of the most revealing things in that was, do you remember the Plaskett woman, Stacey Plaskett from the Virgin Islands? When she was in the hearing and Epstein was like texting her what questions to ask at the hearing, that kind of stuff. It's just like, regardless of the pedophile thing, the sex trafficking, all that stuff, it's like, my opinions on that are maybe a little more nuanced than some. I think it's a case by case basis where, I don't think it's okay, obviously, for anyone to have non-consensual sex with anyone, but like, there's people who get into rock bands and fucking famous people and shit like that. They have access to pussy, or vice versa. It's like, I think this is where I'll leave this. But when you look at someone like Cher, who's dating a guy who's like 20 in his 20s and she's like 60, it's like everyone's like, yeah, you go, girl. And if it's like Jerry Seinfeld who's dating, it's like, oh, you're a fucking piece of shit. And it's like, dude, yeah, I'm not defending it. I wouldn't do it. I have a daughter, like a 20-year-old girl or 17-year-old girl, whatever, is like way too young for me. But then you have situations where, it does make sense. I used to look as a kid at my grandparents who had a 5-year age difference as like being weird, because my grandpa was 13 when my grandma was 8. But like, we have come such a long way from the days where, me and my cousin were talking about the stories our grandparents used to tell us, and they're from like, they came up in like the 1920s and shit. And they, like, my grandpa literally like went to his grandmother's house and was like, they like decided which sister he wanted to choose. You know what I mean? So we were still backwards. Women were still like second-class citizens, and not, things were much more backwards and unevolved, just 100 years ago. So we've come a long way, I guess is my point. I'm not advocating that. I'm not Michael Tracy over here. Okay. Or defending the Epstein class because, oh, come on, you guys are just overreacting. Everybody takes 17-year-old girls on their private plane for foot rubs. Come on. Michael Tracy, who, by the way, attacked Jimmy Dore for no reason. I mean, Jimmy Dore has been kind of hammering on him, so I guess he had good reason. But what a fall from grace for that guy, huh? You know, I honestly, he was one of those guys who he would make me mad a lot when he would report about Bernie Sanders and stuff. Because I would just think, wow, this guy's just like a right-leaning fucking dude trying to smear a leftist like Bernie Sanders, and then he would be right, and I'd just be like, God damn it, I fucking hate you, Michael Tracy, but you're actually right. And now, now that he's come out in defense of the Epstein class, I have to wonder if my original take on him wasn't correct, that he's just some paid shill for the status quo and the forces of the gatekeepers of the Epstein class.
Yay!
Well, guys, I think that's all I have to say today. And thank you very much for jumping on with me. It's been therapeutic, like I said, a lot of this stuff. So just being able to come online and call the people who started war with Iran slimy, filthy, slimy pig cunts is a good release for me. It's like artistic expression. It's healing, if you will, as is watching our good friends in the Middle East take a well-deserved shelling. So I was just watching Garland Nixon before I came on. He had this guy, John Kavanaugh, and they were talking about how this could be, and I'll end you with this thought because I did tweet this today, another one of my banger tweets. This is Trump playing 4D chess. I might have said this at the opening too, so forgive me if I did, but this is Trump playing 4D chess. Like, he's gonna end he's gonna end the U.S. relationship with Israel one way or another, and the way he's doing it is giving them all the rope they need to hang themselves. So we'll see. Now Europe is getting involved. Again, when Europe became like, maybe they've probably always been this way, but it's been funny to like watch Europe become this like we're tough military people too. France and the UK are coming to fight Iran. We're tough. Les tough. We are les tough. We come to fight Americans. We are les tough. I love the French. Don't get me wrong. French have way bigger balls than Americans do. If you notice, like I remember when there was the Freedom Prize thing during right after 9/11, all the conservatives were like, the French won't support our illegal war in Iran, so we're going to change French fries to Freedom Fries. Kid Rock up in the Senate back then. It wasn't actually Kid Rock, but it sounds like something Kid Rock would say, right? But they try to like basically, they called the French like surrender monkeys and shit. The propaganda. And again, if you're anything like me and you came up in the Iraq War era, you're deeply skeptical of all this shit because it's the same playbook they always use. And so I think maybe as our final salvo of the day, I just wanted to say salvo if I'm being honest, but let us watch a video about the buildup to the Iraq War. I have a few of them in here. But I have some really good ones. And let's see what we got here. Here we go. So I'm going to play this for you, and then
I wanted to talk to some others in the media about their role in the run-up to the war. Judith Miller, who left the Times after becoming embroiled in a White House leak scandal, declined our request on legal grounds. The Times liberal hawk Thomas Friedman also said no. So did Bill Safire, who had predicted Iraq would now be leading the Arab world to democracy.
Thomas Friedman, what's that guy been up to? Let's see what Thomas Friedman's been up to on Twitter here. Thomas Friedman, is he on Twitter? Why, yes, he is. And by God, he still works for the New York Times. And by God, He won a Pulitzer Prize. Let's see what old Thomas has to say about Iran, shall we? My column, Netanyahu plays Trump and American Jews for fools again. Wow, that's not a take I expected from him. The message from Texas voters. Interesting. Minneapolis and Gaza now share the same violent language. Okay, hey, maybe Thomas Friedman has evolved a little bit. I fully expected to see him advocating for the Iran war. What does this say? Let's stop beating around the bush. Israel's far right. Okay. So, okay. I could see what he's doing here. And what it looks like he's doing is he is using Netanyahu as the scapegoat for the terrible things that are going on right now, which I think is going to be their out. And I'll close out by saying this, because I do think that based on, I saw Scott Ritter and a couple other people talking about how Russia and China are probably going to try to help the U.S. find an off-ramp because they don't want to see that part of the world go up in flames. And so let's hope that cooler heads prevail and the Europe escalation is kind of stupid. And, you know, they're probably just doing it to like show solidarity or whatever. Also, it's a good excuse to throw money at defense contractors, which also apparently own Europe and the media there now. But let's hope that what happens is Russia and China figure out a way to help Trump de-escalate without looking like a moron, so that he can do a little victory lap and pretend that he got something despite his mistake. And we can wind this down without many more people dying. The next couple of days are going to be interesting to watch as this unfolds, because it doesn't look like Iran is really stopping. So maybe one more thing before we take off. Let's see what the latest news is. Oh man, it's just giving me the feels. It's giving me the feels. I gotta admit, here's the latest news. Hold on a second. That is not the latest news. This is the latest news. Insane Iranian missile rain hits Israel. How many missiles are this at once? This is crazy. Air defense can't intercept them all. Insane. This is 2 hours ago. Huge missile attack and air battle over Israel. Interesting. U.S. CENTCOM listed target that Iranians hit and makes a mistake. Everyone, wait, Haifa oil refinery. Wait, nobody knew this? CENTCOM deletes post. Interesting. Residential areas in Tel Aviv, Israel. Probably places where Iranian missile speeds past Israeli interception rockets and hits a building in Jerusalem. Well, you love to see it. You love to see it. And I will leave you with this. Mission accomplished, guys. Mission accomplished. We did it. It's going to be interesting to watch how this unfolds. But I really hope that cooler heads prevail. And actually, I don't. I kind of hope that Iran just continues to rage on the region and make a point. Because it's a long overdue point that needs to be made, and I think it's already kind of been made. And some of the commentary that I've heard is really all Iran has to do here to win is to stay intact for a few more days. if they can stay intact for, 4 or 5 days, the U.S. and Israel will run out of missiles and probably have to call in Europe. But you love to see it. You just love to see it. And with that, I'm going to play you something funny because I do like to close on a positive note. Or at least something funny. What do I got? I mean, is this funny? I don't even know if I have anything great. What do we got here? What do we got here? What do we got here? Oh, you know what? This isn't funny, but I'm just gonna take you out with this because this is a good way to end this stream. So thank you again for tuning in and allowing me my soapbox for ventilation. And definitely appreciate your comments and interaction. And I do feel like I'm pretty throttled by the YouTube algorithm. So anything, if you like and subscribe, cool. If you haven't already, but if you like what you heard or you enjoyed it or were entertained by it, which I hope you were, share it. Help me get. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers and get monetized on this channel. I have other channels that I make some cash on. I won't go into detail, but it would be nice if I made money on this one because then I could really lean into it harder and spend a lot more time on it because there would be an intrinsic return on investment as far as my time spent goes. But we'll get there eventually. And I appreciate you again. And we'll see you next time. Hopefully sooner than next Sunday, but next Sunday at the latest. You can start pretty much counting on me to be on Sundays from here on out. So give or take, a week or two here and there, but I'm going to try to be a lot more consistent with these. So thanks again, guys. And here's Gene Simmons talking about what a Semite is.
Talk about someone else who's in town, Roger Waters, Pink Floyd. You're obviously Jewish. He's been coming out with a lot of
Israeli.
And he's been coming with a lot of very anti-Israel and what people perceive to be anti-Semitic comments.
I'm not sure that's the same thing.
Right. So what's your position about Roger Waters?
Well, first of all, he's a very talented guy. He's written some of the most wonderful music along with Floyd, many, many decades. And it's obviously held up, and he's got lots of fans. There is something to be said for keeping your political and other beliefs off the stage. His choice is to use the stage as a platform to further his point of view. There is a difference between a political statement about Israel and about anti-Semitism. By the way, anti-Semitism also involves Arabs. The definition of a Semite includes the Arab world. So I think he's a well-meaning guy. I don't agree with his point of views, of course.
So do you think he's anti-Semitic, or do you think he's anti-Israel as a state?
I think he is, from my point of view, inflamed, angry about the political situation, as we all are. You want there to be peace someplace. And look, I turn our attention to this wonderful fairy tale of a country, or there are leprechauns and so on, Ireland. The North and the South. Yeah. So it's been ongoing for God knows how long, and the divisions are deep if you're either Protestant or Catholic or different. And I've visited Parliament there.
We're going to come to that.